What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Wright's Farm. Today we're working on a John Deere m665 zero turn. As you can see, I've already tore into it a little bit. This thing's making kind of some funny noises when it's running. Kind of sounds like it's running on one cylinder but intermittently on both. And you can see I've already tore the intake box off, which is just two little tabs. That you just loosen that tab up, it pulls off, and then you've got your air filter with its little wing nut, and it just unscrews, comes right off. I'll fire it up and let y'all listen to it. See, it kind of sounds like it's running on one cylinder, but it sounds like it's running on both too. But I noticed this carburetor here looks like it's loose. This whole linkage is moving. And you kind of hold down on it and it sounds like it starts running a little better. I think it might have a bad exhaust gasket on this left side over here, but I'm going to pull these bolts out and we're going to see what I can find back there. Alright, so I've kind of got you sitting upside down here, but I think you can see. I'm going to start with these two 8mm for the little plate. Then we've also got to take off this third one that's over here. These bolts seem like they were fairly tight. We'll pull that breather tube out and leave it attached. Let's see here, what's loose? This whole carburetor feels loose. Oh, I can see it. You can see these bolts right here are loose. What if we can tighten them up? Try to not get anything down in the carburetor itself. I should have blowed this off before I pulled it apart, but oh well. Let's see here. Of course, my extension disappeared. Yeah, so this bolt right here is one that holds the carburetor to the actual intake manifold, and you can see it's loose. I can wiggle it back and forth. I don't know how well you can see it, but I can see it. So we're just going to try and tighten those up. Don't have to go too crazy on it because these bolts aren't really that big. Oh, those bolts are tight. We can fire it up without having the plate on there. So let's see how it runs. It is running better. Well, it doesn't sound like it's got a blown head gasket. It sounds like it's running strong on this cylinder. It just sounds like the exhaust manifold gasket is gone. So let's see how we can get this muffler shroud off and get the muffler off. It's also got a pretty bad oil leak over here. I think that's just some lines. Probably just needs to be tightened up a little bit, maybe adjusted, maybe some new lines. Other than the oil leak in the gaskets. So really ain't a bad lawnmower. Just trying to fix it up for my neighbor. He's been mowing with it like this for probably 2 years, and it's been bothering me every time I hear him out there mowing with it, because it sounds like it's running on one cylinder. But yeah, I'm gonna get some PV blaster and spray on these exhaust bolt, or these exhaust manifold studs, because they are a little rusty. So hopefully I can get some PV blaster on there and get them broke loose. And I might have a gasket laying around for that thing. If not, I'll have to order one and I can fix it in a couple of days. But yeah, let's get some PV blaster on these nuts. There ain't a whole lot left in this can. Try and get all 4 of them really good. I know some guys like to use that Croyle or whatever it's called. It's in an orange can. I don't have any. This is what I've got, so this is what I'm going to use. Well, I'm going to let that stuff sit for probably about 10 minutes or so, and then I'm going to get a socket and we'll see if we can get this exhaust off. And there's also 2 other mounts there. As y'all can notice, I've got my dogs out today, both of them. But there's 2 other mounts under there. You can either take it loose from here, which that doesn't look like it's going to come loose, or you can take it loose from that side on the engine. That's probably what we're going to do, is just take it loose over there, and then these other 4 bolts, and take the whole thing off. Alright, so I got the exhaust off. I ended up taking these 2 bolts out. These 2 studs, they have 13mm nuts on them. Before you start taking them off, I would spray them down with something, just because it's on the exhaust side. Meaning, every time this thing runs, it heats up, and then when you shut it off, it cools down. So specifically, this hardware goes through a lot of heat cycles, so it's more likely to be rusted on there and seized on. I took these 2 bolts out instead of the bottom 2 on that bracket. Took these 2 out. They're 10mm. They were somewhat easy to get out. And as you can see, I found our culprit of why it is so loud. You can see the gasket is busted right here, and that would be why it's so loud. Look, it just falls apart. Get the rest of that off of there. Alright, now I'll go dig through my stash and see if I can find another exhaust manifold gasket or 2. I don't know that I've got 2, but I might have one. I'll go see what I can find. Alright, so this is what I found. These are 2 exhaust gaskets off of a Predator 670, and as you can see, they match up pretty close. I mean, they're not exact, but they'll work. So we're gonna take these, stick these on there. And then I'm going to take the sander and I'm going to clean this. I'm going to clean this face up on both of these to where it's a nice flat, smooth surface, to where hopefully it doesn't blow the gasket out again. Alright, so don't need to use nothing too extreme. This is a fairly worn out 36 grit on a little pneumatic sander. Not trying to grind it down or nothing, just trying to clean it up where it's nice and smooth. Oh yeah, by the way, I don't recommend doing this beside your gas jugs, but it'll be fine. wear safety glasses too. Yeah, that feels pretty smooth. Alright, we're going to slap this thing back on there and get it all put back together. There's Yeti. And there's Athena. Alright, I got you set up there. We've got our new gaskets on there. Slide the muffler back on. Lined up. We'll grab our bolts first. Slide them down in here. They'll be the bolts are going to be the most aggravating pieces to get in. Once you get them started though, they're good. That one's started. Just run it in a good bit. I like to try and run the bolts in as far as you can with your fingers, where you don't have to use tools as much. You don't want to force anything to get started on threads, because if you do that, you're liable to strip it out, and then what was only 30 minute to an hour job turned into a headache. This one started. Sometimes you gotta move your part around a little bit where you can get it lined up where it goes in easy. Get these nuts on here. These things can be aggravating to get in, so just have some patience. This side started. Now, start tightening these two bolts up in the center first. Quite a spot to get to. Pretty tight to get in there with your hands. Not the only good tool you have any room to get in there with is just a combination wrench. Can't really get a ratchet wrench on there. It just doesn't fit. Alright, so we got all the muffler bolts back on and tight. Now we're going to stick the intake box. Oops. Going to stick the intake box plate back on. And this is going to kind of require two hands. Let me get y'all set up. It's not the best, but it's what I can do. Alright, so we're going to take this breather tube. Going to push it back up through this hole for it. Maybe. Make sure you get it pulled up past the little rubber grommet that it has. this one can go in its spot. And then don't forget, also got this plate, and you can kind of see where the outlines are, how this side is square and this side's kind of triangle looking. That's how this bracket goes. And also this is going to go, this has a hole in it, so this goes in it too. We'll have this thing fired up here in just a minute. Now these bolts don't have to be crazy tight, but they do need to be fairly tight. I mean, you don't want them coming loose. Remember, these bolts are not big. Don't tighten them up too much, they'll break. Plus, they're just going into the top of the carburetor. Air filter, not going to worry about cleaning it right now. We're going to put a new one on at the beginning of next season. We're halfway through August already, so we won't be cutting grass too much longer around here in North Carolina. Tighten that down pretty snug. You're going to get your air box. This hang down piece is going to go towards the front. Sometimes these are a little tricky to get lined up. There we go. Alright. That's that. Let's fire up. Definitely running better. I wouldn't say it's any quieter. It is definitely running better. Might have a hole in the muffler actually. I didn't really examine it the best, but it could have a hole somewhere in the muffler. I know I got that exhaust gasket tight. I know it shouldn't be leaking anymore. And I cleaned it off. I'm gonna tighten this oil cooler lines up. And I think we're gonna call it a day on this old machine. Hey guys, so I forgot to film an outro when I was working on the mower. Just got a little carried away. But basically, what you saw was I pulled the intake, the air box off, and the carburetor was loose. Tightened the carburetor up and replaced both of the manifold gaskets on the exhaust. Basically, what I think is the baffle in one side of the muffler has rotted out and is gone. That's why it still has that kind of high-pitched noise. Sounds like the gasket's bad, but the gaskets are good and they're on there tight. I know they're not leaking anymore. He said he's not worried about the muffler right now. He said the noise doesn't bother him, but it is running a lot better now that the carburetor's actually tight to the intake manifold. But hopefully we'll see him back in the spring to do a tune-up on that thing, do an oil change, and maybe sharpen the blades, maybe even put some rear tires on it because they're pretty slick. But he has a mainly flat yard, so who knows, I guess we'll see. But hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and we'll see you next time.